For a while, Mitsubishi made the only plug-in hybrid SUV from a non-luxury automaker. Today, that's no longer the case, but this is still a limited market. And now that the Outlander PHEV is a year into its second generation, it's still styled and drives very differently from competitors. So let's go take a look. There's not much else like the Outlander PHEV. It's a 7-passenger plug-in, and even though the chassis and the infotainment are shared with the Nissan Rogue, nothing else about this car is. This next part might take a little while because there's a lot of parts under here. There's a 2.4-liter inline-four gas engine, very conventional. There's a 20 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery, and there's 3 electric motors. The engine is attached to an electric generator, which then drives the front axle with that electric motor. It's also attached to a CVT, multiple ratios, variable ratios. In the back, there is no transmission. It's direct drive, runs directly off that electric motor. These are the total numbers, horsepower and torque, pretty decent, and there's 38 miles of EPA estimated range. There's only 64 mpge total fuel economy, and that is now placing the Outlander PHEV at the lowest end of the entire PHEV SUV segment. It used to be great, not anymore, but still decent. And now check out the hybrid-only fuel economy figures. That part is pretty much all right. But again, it could be better considering everything is on board. But check this out, this is the redeeming quality. On the top SEL trim, you can get fast charging, DC on the older CHAdeMO style plug. You can still find those at pretty much every charging station that's out there. It goes up to 50 kilowatts, and while that may not seem like a lot, there's no other plug-in hybrid aside from a Mercedes S-Class that lets you do level 3 charging. Most everything else is level 2. That is pretty good. When it comes to design, Mitsubishi takes risks. That's because this is a big Japanese conglomerate that has made everything from big screen TVs to water chestnuts. They got so many brands, and Mitsubishi Motors is just one part of that. Now for 2024, this car really only gets one change. It's the Platinum Edition, and it looks just like this, only it has special black paint. This being the top trim, the SEL, it has the black painted roof already, just like that Platinum Edition, with the silver cross rails, plus this beautiful red diamond paint. It actually is. It's very much just like Mazda in that beautiful Soul Red that we always have and always test. This car up close, the paint job is beautiful. So are the two-tone 20-inch wheels. 18s come standard. Right now, Mitsubishi has fitted this with Bridgestone Blizzaks. Those are not typically offered on this car. You could get them at a Mitsubishi dealer, but it's very, very helpful with an SUV like this in the winter. And they're pretty large, 255 millimeters in width. Especially in the front. You got these arcing big pieces of chrome. I don't know what else to call them, but they sweep around the headlights, very thin LEDs on top. There's a lot going on here. From the side, it's a little bit more conventional, and the rear, pretty handsome, especially with the taillights in the back. But this car, you will know it's a Mitsubishi, and it doesn't look like anything else. I like that part of it. Considering the Outlander is based on the current gen Nissan Rogue, it doesn't share any body panels with that car. And it's funny too, because you see a big EV logo here on the side of the door, but truly it's a plug-in hybrid. It's funny that that's in smaller type. Once you explain to people that this is not an EV, it's still an impressive car on the side, I think. Really, it doesn't look like it's too much bigger than a regular car. It's 8 inches off the ground approximately, but it's really easy to access stuff on the roof because it's not very tall. Too many SUVs, even in the compact class, are getting just kind of too bulky, but Mitsubishi kept that bulk down. There's 31 cubic feet of space behind the second row and about 65 when fully folded. And there's also a third row. 2 small people can fit back here. Not here. Gotta fold this. Like that. Put up these comically tall headrests, and now you've got a jump seat with some more partial shelf underneath. And the interesting thing is that this can all go back down, not too hard either. That, push that. It's interesting, no other car really does that. And the interesting thing about the PHEV is that it doesn't affect the cargo space at all versus the regular Outlander. You're getting the same space. This interior is much nicer than any Nissan Rogue, and on this SEL, you get the semi-aniline leather. That's supposed to be the softest leather you can get in a car, but really, the leather grade isn't phenomenal. But the materials and the quality actually are. Mitsubishi went for a clean and linear look. There aren't too many materials, and while some of the door panels are hard plastic, there's nice touch points on the window switches and even some of the dials. They have that knurled metal look to them. And the fit and finish are very good, not like old Mitsubishi models. There's some extra nice touches on an Outlander, like these massaging front seats. There's aluminum trim that's actually real. Mitsubishi is very quick to point that out. And I like the color in here. Some nice climate features, a windshield wiper de-icer, and a heat pump. That's a more efficient way of heating an EV because it doesn't use resistive electric heating. There's an electric compressor, plus it also uses exhaust heat from the engine to more efficiently heat and cool the cabin. The nice thing about this second row is that there's more legroom than it seems. They actually slide fore and aft, and that may not help anyone in the third row, but really, who cares about them when you're sitting back here? Because on the SEL, you get heated outboard seats, a third climate zone, and you get to enjoy the panoramic moonroof. And there's a 1500 watt power outlet here and in the back. When you drive an Outlander PHEV, you're driving 3 different cars in one. The complexity of this plug-in powertrain is such that it operates in 3 different modes. You can do all electric, which will force it in most speed instances to operate just on the battery. But when you're in the automatic and normal modes, the car is actually going to do one of 2 things. Work as a series hybrid in which the gas engine is powering a generator that then powers the electric motors, or parallel hybrid, which is like most hybrids on the market now, like the Toyota Prius, where they work in tandem, both the battery and the gas engine. And this car will seamlessly switch between those modes on the fly. You can see the energy flow right here on the instrument panel. That's the only way to tell really what's happening, because all the efforts and transitions are very smooth. You hear some whine, but you really don't hear much at all, aside from just really a little whir of the electric motor under acceleration. Really, the noisiest element here is really the climate control system. When the heater's running, it's electric, so that's really the only kind of vibration or really kind of noise you're hearing for the most part. So let's break down some more driving modes. There's 7 driving modes in total. It kind of works like Land Rover's terrain response system. It varies the all-wheel drive split. It'll vary really the steering effort and some of the, not really the shift points, but the actual way that this car is routing the torque between gas and electric modes. For the most part, there really is no reason to touch that dial, because it's not a sporty SUV, and it's really not meant to be a serious off-road capable SUV either. So keep it in normal mode. But with the paddle shifters, this is actually the brake regen, and there's 5 different modes for that. Using the right paddle will make it a little bit lighter, heavier. On the left paddle, it goes up to B5. And if you really want that full 1-pedal driving experience, there's another button down here. I press that, and the deceleration is very strong, actually. In most PHEV SUVs or cars, you can't do 1-pedal driving. That's typically restricted to just full EVs. So it's an interesting feature if you like that. And we're not done yet, because within the EV mode, there's several more ways to activate that. So you get the normal mode, which will switch between the gas and electric as it needs. EV, which makes it fully battery unless I really put my foot down past the detemp point, then it activates the gas engine. A great feature, because if you absolutely need to pass or get out of the way, you need that gas engine. And like the Jeep Wrangler 4xe, there are 2 other modes. Save, which will preserve the battery at its current level of charge, more or less. You'll see it there on the dash. That's useful when you would like to use the battery later. And then there's another one, Charge, and this one's not very efficient because it's using that gas engine and turning it at such high revs so it can both power the wheels, power the electric motors, and attempt to recharge the battery on the go. I've done that. It works, but truly on the highway, it does make a bit too much noise because the engine is turning at like 4,000 RPM, and my fuel economy went down quite a bit. So I would not recommend anyone use that function. Neat that it's there, but not very helpful. Mitsubishi says you can go from 0 to 80% charge in 38 minutes on a fast charge. In my experience, in the cold, at 2 different stations with Electrify America and EVgo, it was barely churning above 15 kilowatts. But I'm not going to blame the car for that one. Those stations are notoriously unreliable. If you're charging at home on a 240 volt level 2 connection, figure about 6.5 hours. In terms of driving, I was able to do about 29 miles all electric, but the engine occasionally would turn on, especially when using the climate control, and then it would turn off. That was within about 5 miles of the estimated range in total. So all in all, pretty good. The Outlander may be based on the Nissan Rogue in terms of the chassis, but it does not drive anything like any Nissan Rogue I've driven. On this car, Mitsubishi uses all of its own mechanicals, including the all-wheel drive system, which they call super all-wheel control. And that's derived from the Lancer Evos and the Gallants, the whole era of Mitsubishi really taking over rallying, especially in the 1990s. It doesn't really translate to high performance in an SUV like this, because it's heavy. This is over 4,600 pounds of SUV. It's many, many hundred pounds heavier than a standard Outlander. It's quicker, that's for sure. But where this does help is that it uses a new version of active yaw control. That was another awesome Mitsubishi's technical highlight out of the 90s. On the Lancer Evos, it was actually a mechanical torque vectoring system. Very revolutionary. Now you see it everywhere, but it was Mitsubishi that really put that system on the map. These days, it's using brake-based torque vectoring, and that's both the front and the rear axle. And a lot of cars will only do either the front or the rear, but because electric motors are directly driving the front and the rear axle, well, that means they have more control over the torque split, and also when you go around a turn, it's actively looking at the steering angle, all the stuff that a typical torque vectoring system would do, but it's reading even more input. How does that translate? It's sure-footed, it certainly feels that way. Really doesn't roll all that much. I'm driving on some Bridgestone Blizzaks right now. And funny enough, while I'm driving, I've been seeing more Mitsubishi Outlanders pass me right now than I have all week. So it must be Mitsubishi Day. It's kind of one of those things when you actually drive a vehicle, you end up noticing what you're driving and never see it any other time. But the chassis is pretty composed for a car that's definitely longer and a little roomier inside than a Nissan Rogue. I do think that it really doesn't detract from the performance at all, certainly not the weight. You can push it into a turn and it feels good. There's really no steering feel. This is really not sporty whatsoever. And when the road gets a little bumpy, actually not bad on these 20-inch tires. Really not a lot of noise and intrusion coming through the cabin. So I would say this car is pretty composed. Not fun to drive. Certainly not fun to drive like Mitsubishi's true performance cars. It's really nothing at all like that. I really wish they would do that because plug-in hybrids, a lot of them today, are becoming more powerful and efficient. And this one's efficient, but a lot of other cars in this class are more efficient. But I will say the handling's pretty confident. I like that. Confident and competent. Where it really matters as a plug-in hybrid is how long you can drive on just the battery. Now, when I first start it, the engine fires up. So certain plug-in hybrids will actually just keep running on that battery if you have a fully charged battery. This one does not, unless you select the full EV mode down here in the center console, then it will do that. But I am finding that when this battery is nice and warm, say after you've charged, right now it's 37 degrees, so the gas engine does awake a little bit more. But for the most part, it stays off. It really does, which I like. When I drove the Hyundai Tucson plug-in, that engine was always running, no matter what. So I didn't think that was a good plug-in for the winter. This one is. And at highway speeds of 60, 70 miles an hour, also fully electric. So unless you're really prodding the accelerator pedal, it'll stay in electric mode for the most part. Braking is pretty squishy. I don't like the feel, but the rotors are large. They're almost 14 inches in the front, so stopping power is good, but definitely not confidence inspiring when you put your foot down. A 9-inch touchscreen comes standard, and it looks just like Nissan, only slightly different typefaces. I do appreciate that if they're going to borrow another automaker's system, that it looks a little different. There's also wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I like that. Good cameras, very good 360 views. Otherwise, well, it still looks a bit old, and most of the good stuff is on the instrument panel. This digital instrument panel comes standard. It shows you tons of information this way, and then if you want to change the view, well, the tachometer gets positively like camera-like. It's really cool. Not really easy to use while you're driving, but this makes it very easy to adjust vehicle settings that you can't in the touchscreen. These little pictographs do help you really pick out what you're choosing. Interesting features on the Outlander PHEV is a battery cooler, which I'm not using here in the winter, but in the summertime that will definitely help keep the battery at optimum temperature. It's also nice, if I go back, you can actually see what temperature the battery is. A lot of EV car makers don't do that, and this is useful information, especially if you want a fast charge. The 2024 Outlander PHEV starts at $40,345. That's a premium from the regular Outlander, but it does come with more standard equipment across the 3 trims. Mine was the top grade SEL with the premium package, the red diamond paint, floor mats, and a tonneau cover for the cargo, and that was $51,835 with destination. The competitors? The Toyota RAV4 Prime, the Kia Sorento PHEV, the Hyundai Tucson PHEV, which is a few thousand cheaper, and the Ford Escape PHEV, but that one is front-wheel drive only. Where the Outlander truly outshines everything is the 5-year 60,000-mile warranty, 10-year 100,000-mile powertrain for the first owner, plus 3 oil changes and tire rotations. This Mitsubishi used to be revolutionary, but now it's the least efficient plug-in hybrid SUV in its class. It also doesn't top the EPA estimated range in this class either. But where it really saves itself are that DC fast charging capability, the cool design, I do like it, and the fact that the warranty is so good, plus maintenance. Really, that's where it really shines, because this is a very competitively priced car, and the interior is pretty nice. There's a lot to like about Mitsubishi, and it's a shame that not as many people consider them over Toyota, Honda, Hyundai, and all the major brands that are out there. Mitsubishi is still a big brand name, and I think it's worth considering, especially since they've been in the plug-in game for a long time. What do you think? Would you consider one of these at any price? Let us know. Go to CarGurus.com and subscribe to the YouTube channel, because we'll be back next time.